right now it sounds like we have a lot of coping mechanisms anytime we come to a conflict, an objection, something that's not fully going our way. What's been the reaction to that? Like, I'm seeing symptoms of this is like you have cancel kind of culture is one of them, people isolating. You've mentioned the loneliness. Are there other consequences that we're seeing in the way that the world is today based on this skill not being trained?
I mean, I think there are many, right? I mean, one is, the kind of way in which, I'm seeing this playing out in a US context literally today. Three different people wrote to me and said, I'm no longer on X, I'm on Blue Sky. So these are these very different, these different social media places. And I get it. I mean, I get that people have objections to whatever Elon Musk, but what that intentional separation is doing um, is actually making things worse. So it is an act of removal, right? Which is different from canceling somebody, right? Which is different from, I would say, like within universities, right? We see these ideas of trigger warnings. And in our book, like we make a very big distinction between subjecting yourself to ongoing trauma or abuse, which we do not call for, versus actually putting yourself into situations of discomfort because we need to develop that as a leadership skill, as a business skill. So I think there's a bunch of these dynamics going on all at the same time, and I think that they compound and they escalate. And I would say one of the I think really challenging aspects I think of what our book offers or tries to offer is I think that there is a sense that engagement with others who are opposed to us is a waste of time. There's so little we agree on anyway. You're mostly in opposition to me. It's better for me to spend my time with my people than trying to find some ounce of common ground with you. And I think what we really try to make the case of is that that is a mistake at a bunch of different levels. First of all, often there actually is common ground if you could cultivate that curiosity. So just to use your example, Jason, which I love, right? When the customer or potential customer says, "No, I don't want that." Like, what does cultivating curiosity in that moment, genuine curiosity, mean and look like? If it's just a performative, curious question, it will look performative and look trained. If you respond by saying, "Oh, well, you definitely want this. Let me tell you more about it." That's kind of annoying, frankly. Like, don't tell me what I want. Or if you just walk away, you might have lost an opportunity, right? So in that moment, how do you cultivate the curiosity and then somehow be able to demonstrate? And this is, I think, the work of the book. We talk about this thing called the BBO, the bigger, better offer, right? If someone has to see that there's a bigger, better offer at the end of that work. And I think right now people are not having these kinds of engagements because they don't see that. They only see the work. They don't see the possible gain. And so part of this is, I think, a combination for us of both telling some real stories of that, both from both of our professional lives and personal lives, and also just from actual like higher profile stories, also giving some tactics, and then also really talking about, what is going on in our brain in these moments and what are some moves that we can make to retrain the brain to see that BBO or that bigger, better offer.
I think one thing that could be really relevant to your audience, let's say you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to pitch to a VC, for example, right? Or you're doing some business development and you're looking to pitch to kind of a potential really big partner. Um, if you don't have this conflict resilience muscle really trained and conditioned, it's definitely going to affect your performance when you're doing that pitch. Because if you're coming into that pitch already worried about kind of the objections that are going to come up or how they're going to look at you or kind of them disagreeing kind of with fact ABC in your deck, you're going to be flustered. Your mind is going to be elsewhere. And that's going to really hurt your confidence. And that really will really translate when you're doing that pitch. And then in the middle of that pitch, when questions do come up and you get a big objection, because you're always going to get a big objection, right? Because part of the job of the other side of the pitch is to poke holes. If you don't feel comfortable when that happens, it's going to derail you, get really distracted. And part of that is your own physiology, right? It's this kind of mechanism that we have in our body to protect ourselves from threats, which is kind of your heart rate increases, blood pressure goes up, your muscles contract. And then all of the kind of activity and kind of blood flow to the parts of your brain that are much more deliberative, that are really there for good judgment, planning, and organization, that starts to go offline. And all that attention then goes to your limbic system, these kind of parts of your brain that are really focused on kind of the fight, flight, kind of how to protect yourself from that saber-toothed tiger. And so your responses are likely to sound very canned, or you're just going to come across like you're not really confident in what you're trying to pitch. So I think conflict resilience, no matter what you do, is this kind of really, really fundamental kind of like muscle that we should all be conditioning. And there's a really strong part of our own kind of brain wiring that we have to kind of like really program and really strengthen.
I like the fact that paying attention to this, especially on a business context, you've already mentioned, you're probably losing out deals because you're not even seeing that there's a bigger opportunity beyond that conflict. You're just giving up, basically. And there's another one, which is if you're someone that's more reactionary. So imagine you're going to offer your product and service and people says like, oh, that sounds terrible. And you flip out on them being like, you don't understand. You're so stupid. You don't like, you've already, now your brand is being affected. So not having trained this muscle becomes a liability for your business and becomes a really wasteful way of dealing with leads that might have came your way that you actually haven't extracted and demonstrated value to. And so it sounds like this training of the muscle to deal with conflict is a very important part of that.
Thank you so much for listening to the Selling with Love podcast. We have some previous episodes you can tune into right here. And if you prefer the short form content where you get to the point in under 10 minutes, we do have a ton of clips from our best episodes that are being shared on this channel as well. So pick which one supports you the most. And of course, thank you for liking, subscribing, and of course, selling with love.